Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. My name is Ganga Narayana, and we'll get started with the invocation prayers and the discussions. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let me share my screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, 14th chapter, verse number 5. Maitreya Uvacha साधुवीर त्वया पृष्टम् अवतार कथां हरेः यत्त्वं पृच्छसि मर्त्यानां मृत्युपाशविशातनीम् मैत्रेय उवाच साधुवीर त्वया पृष्टम् अवतार कथां हरेः यं त्वं पृच्छसि मर्त्यानां मृत्युपाशविशातनीम्. Once again, Maitreya uvacha साधुवीर त्वया पृष्टम् अवतार कथां हरेः यत्त्वं पृच्छसि मर्त्यानां मृत्युपाश विशातनीम्. Mrityayovacha, Maitreyovacha, Maitreya said, Sadhu, devotee, Veera, O warrior, Tvaya, by you, Prishtam, inquired, Avatara, Katham, topics on the incarnation of the Lord, Arehe, of the personality of Godhead, yet that which, Tvam, your good self, Pritchasi, asking me, Martyanam, of those who are destined for death, Mrityu Pasha, the chain of birth and death, Vishatanim, source of liberation. Translation: The great sage Maitreya said, O warrior, the inquiry made by you is just befitting a devotee because it concerns the incarnation of the personality of Godhead. He is the source of liberation from the chain of birth and death for all those who are otherwise destined to die. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya addressed Vidura as a warrior not only because Vidura belonged to the Kuru family, but because he was anxious to hear about the chivalrous activities of the Lord in his incarnations of Varaha and Narsimha. Because the inquiries concerned the Lord, they were perfectly befitting a devotee. A devotee has no taste for hearing anything mundane. There are many topics of mundane warfare, but a devotee is not inclined to hear them. The topics of the warfare in which the Lord engages do not concern the war of death, but the war against the chain of Maya, which obliges one to accept repeated birth and death. In other words, One who takes delight in hearing the war topics of the Lord is relieved from the chains of birth and death. Foolish people are suspicious of Krishna's taking part in the battle of Kurukshetra, not knowing that his taking part ensured liberation for all who were present on the battlefield. It is said by Bhishma Dev that all who were present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained the original spiritual existence after that. Therefore, hearing the war topics of the Lord, is as good as any other devotional service. I'll read the translation once again. The great sage Maitreya said, O warrior, the inquiry made by you is just befitting a devotee because it concerns the incarnation of the personality of Godhead. He is the source of liberation from the chain of birth and death for all those who are otherwise destined to die. So, thank you again for joining this morning. There are 4 points that I wanted to discuss in today's discussion. One is inquisitiveness. That is something that is intrinsic. Second is who to approach in order to satisfy that inquisitiveness. Third is how to approach to satisfy the inquisitiveness. And then fourth is what to ask. What is the nature of that inquisitiveness? So those are the 4 areas that I will be focusing on. So just to give a little bit of context here, now we have Vidura in the first 4 verses. So this is again conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Maitreya has explained, the creation of the world, and now we are talking about, and then we also heard about the Varaha incarnation in the previous chapter. And in this particular verse now, Vidura is more eager to hear about exactly what happened. I want to know a little bit more. He's more curious to understand and hear about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So that's the context that we are in. Now, I wanted to specifically pick up on this inquisitiveness as an intrinsic characteristic of the soul. And so the first verse from the Vedanta Sutra, as we understand, is Atado Brahma Jigyasa. So now that you have accepted a human form of birth, inquire about the absolute truth. That's the very first aphorism or sutra in the Vedanta Sutra. So that's understood that everybody is inquisitive, irrespective of the kind of body we may be talking about. Animals are inquisitive, humans are inquisitive. All of anything that moves or doesn't move, and all souls are inquisitive. So that is the nature of us. And so we have a desire to inquire, and that inquiry is also can be of multiple facets. And so you could inquire about material things, or you could inquire about things that help elevate one's consciousness. So I wanted to go to our basics here, which is Nectar of Instruction by Srila Rupa Goswami. In the second verse, Srila Rupa Goswami describes about 6 items that destroy devotional service. And I wanted to very specifically touch upon Prajalpa. So, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha lavlyam cha shadbir bhakti vinashyati. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the spiritual rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and being greedy for mundane achievements. So I wanted to very specifically focus on uh, the third point here, which is talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Because if you recollect in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about there is war, and there is acts of chivalry by the Supreme Lord. We all like suspense, we like drama, we like humor, we like action, and there's a lot of action movies on Netflix and other places, YouTube. And then there is the action that we get from Srimad Bhagavatam and a lot of our scriptures. And so I wanted to very specifically touch upon this nature of Prajalpa. Now, again, talking about mundane subject matters, you could have two extremes here, right? One extreme is that, I would not talk absolutely anything, including to my family members or my relatives or my friends, other than what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and these scriptures. So that's one position. The other position is taking it to the very extreme where we are so far disconnected from our spiritual pursuit. And an example that we have from our acharyas is Srila Sanatana Goswami. We understand how Sanatana Goswami would actually go to the village and he would inquire about people's families, their livelihood, their health, how are they doing. He was obviously such an elevated personality, and that building of a bridge is something that he genuinely did because he did care about the people. And in building the bridge, giving his association, and by his association, the people that he interfaced with also developed attraction to Sanatana Goswami, and the things that Sanatana Goswami was attracted to, which is Krishna Bhakti. So they also got attracted to Krishna Bhakti. So some of these interactions may seem mundane, but they are not mundane. Another example is also, Lord Chaitanya instructing Raghunath Goswami to manage his business externally, but then internally to be able to meditate on Krishna. So uh, just it is just because we are discussing something mundane momentarily doesn't necessarily imply that that is or that person is a non-devotee or non-Krishna conscious or whatever might be our judgments. So, but at the same time, how do we ensure that we don't actually go into the extreme? I came across a really nice article by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and he has visited us in Naperville here. The first thing he says is that gossip is currently quite glamorized, right? It is to be an information junkie, to be aware of what's happening, to whom, when, where, keeping statistics on sports. I mean, this is all highly glorified in the current day and age. So that's number one. Second is intellectually rationalized. And what that means is that um, the utility, it's the information or the gossip is disconnected from utility. What can you actually do with that information? Now, in traditional days, you would have people discussing, and maybe about the weather, about the farm, and agriculture, something that has to do with the sustenance. And that was a little bit more related to their actual existence and the actual livelihood. But increasingly, we see that the topics of gossip get more and more disconnected from a lot of our practicalities of what surrounds us. The third point is technologically facilitated. So gossip is glamorized, intellectually rationalized, and third is technologically facilitated. It is extremely easy for us to gather all kinds of gossip. In fact, it's something that is striking to people who come to the US for the very first time and turn on the news. And actually, now this is also the case in many places where the news has started to become glamorous. And also with the internet and all kinds of social media, the technology, the facilitation by technology is unprecedented. So again, there is no dearth for us to um, be able to engage in prajalpa. So again, it's something that Srila Rupa Goswami is indicating that we have to guard against this if we have to protect our creeper of bhakti. So that's um, the inquisitiveness and how we have to make sure that in trying to be inquisitive, we tread this path of being inquisitive about the right topics. So the second out of the four topics that I said I wanted to discuss is who to approach. So let me share this. So this is a very beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, verse number 8. Chapter number 8, verse number 4. This is Garga Muni that is visiting Nanda Maharaj. And in this, I'll just read the translation. Oh my Lord, oh great devotee, persons like you move from one place to another, not for their own interests, but for the sake of poor-hearted grihasthas, householders. Otherwise, they have no interest in going from one place to another. So this is the nature of a great devotee who is eager to share um, knowledge of Krishna or bhakti towards Krishna to people who otherwise may not have that front and center as part of their lives. And then, of course, we go back to the start of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The setting is you have the sages that are gathered in Naimisharanya, and then you have Suta Goswami. So these are the questions. These are the words of the between the sages and Suta Goswami. Um, Give me 1 second. So I wanted to actually discuss the first canto, first chapter, verse number 6. All right, so the sages say, Respected Sudha Goswami, you're completely free from vice. You're well versed in all the scriptures famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well, for you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So again, here is again the qualifications of who uh, we should be seeking out to hear from. Somebody that is completely free from all vices, well versed in all the scriptures famous for religious life and in the Puranas and the histories, and you have gone through them under proper guidance, evam parampara praptam, and I've also explained them. So that's being the eldest learned Vedantist Osuta Goswami, you're acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. And then finally, and because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us that you have scientifically, therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. Again, this is, uh, again, a mark of um, a true spiritual teacher, a spiritual master, because they have submissively themselves um, heard from their spiritual perceptors and hence been endowed with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. And so that is the nature of the person. Again, here we have Maitreya Muni that is being approached by Vidura. And um, this nature, this qualification of being able to uh, represent the spiritual parampara is that of being submissiveness. And then there is the other aspect of how to approach. And again, the how to approach is also um, submissiveness. And actually, if we refer to the Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, we have amanitvam, adamvitvam. So that is humility and pridelessness. It starts with humility. The items of knowledge, as it is enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita, starts with humility. Humility is the beginning of gathering knowledge or attaining knowledge. Now, the super soul in the heart of a sincere person directs the individual to the right source depending on their desires. And then there is also the other aspect of the causeless mercy of devotees that may intercept a person who may not actually be sincere in their seeking of higher consciousness. And that's the causeless mercy of the devotees part of it. And actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini very clearly lays that out and establishes how a Madhyama Adhikari devotee is best established to give Krishna consciousness. Um, and then I'll also, again, as we are heading very close to the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, I thought, this is probably a good time to very briefly narrate the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya as it's relevant here. And I wanted to share the pastime of Lord Chaitanya meeting Ramanand Raya. So Lord Chaitanya was was engaged on his South India Yatra, and he had just visited the Jiyara Narasimha temple at Simhachalam, which is close to Vishakhapatnam. And he had been told by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that, as you go down south, please make sure that you meet up with this great devotee called Ramananda Raya. And so Lord Chaitanya is, after he's visited the Jir Narasimha temple, he's headed towards the um, towards Vijayanagara, and he is by the banks of Godavari. He settles down by the banks of Godavari. And as he's settling down by the banks of Godavari, he's of course in his mood of remembering, uh, the pastimes of Krishna, and uh, and so and he's engaged in his chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And so as he's doing that, sees he sees a very um, he sees an official party. He sees there's a personality who seemed like he was an official. There was some people that were following him. There were some brahmanas, and they were singing and chanting. And he could realize that, yes, this must be Ramananda Raya. And although he understood that it was Ramananda Raya and had an intense desire to get up and um, embrace Ramananda Raya, he maintained his posture, just being respectful of the sannyas ashram that he was in at that time. And Ramananda Raya, after he went through his ablutions in Godavari, he notices Lord Chaitanya as this very attractive personality. And he approaches Lord Chaitanya, and he introduces himself. And um, Lord Chaitanya said that, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked that I come and meet you. Uh, um, and then they actually they embrace each other. The and the party that was following Ramananda Raya is actually quite surprised and shocked, because they're thinking, how is it that such a great official, Ramananda Raya was the governor of Vijayanagara, and Prabhupada says almost like a king, and he's embracing a sannyasi, a simple sannyasi. And also the point to note here is Ramananda Raya was from the Shudra caste. And that was quite controversial at that time, to see a sannyasi embrace uh, a Shudra on one side, and then of course somebody who's a ultimate materialist. So that was quite controversial. But obviously, within our Vedic system, the qualities are more important than the actual labels of time, place, and circumstance. And what is really interesting is, so they meet up, and then they decide to meet in the evening. So Ramananda Raya comes to meet Lord Chaitanya. And the very first question that Lord Chaitanya poses, even before Ramananda Raya could speak anything, was, uh, please quote me from the scriptures. What is the ultimate goal of life? Like literally, that was the very first question that Lord Chaitanya poses to Ramananda Raya. And so the conversation proceeds from, starting with Ramananda stating that as long as you can execute your occupational duties perfectly, that is your ultimate goal. That is like the basic, which Lord Chaitanya immediately dismisses, saying that something more. I need something, a higher level of truth or understanding than just that. This is just external, all the way to the love for Krishna by Radharani. So it goes all the way to that, and it's a very beautiful narration. We don't have time to get into that. But what is interesting is I wanted to share the mood here of humility by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then of course equal mood of humility by Ramananda Raya. So Lord Chaitanya admitted this is the highest position of transcendental loving reciprocation, and he told Ramananda Raya By your grace only, I have been able to understand such a high transcendental position. Such a position cannot be attained without the performance of transcendental activities. So you will kindly explain to me how I can raise myself to this platform. Can you imagine Lord Chaitanya telling Ramananda Raya, please tell me how I can raise myself to this transcendental platform of love that Ramananda Raya just described. And in turn, Ramananda Raya replies, it is similarly difficult for me to make you understand. He's telling Lord Chaitanya, as far as I'm concerned, I can only speak what you wish me to. No one can escape your supreme will. Indeed, there is no one in the world who can surpass your supreme will. And although I appear to be speaking, I'm actually not the speaker. You are speaking. Therefore, you are both the speaker and the audience. Let me speak only as you will me to speak about the performance required to attain this highest transcendental position. So anyway, I wanted to emphasize on this mood of this qualification around who to approach, how to approach, and also what kind of topics are worthy when we do approach a qualified person. So with that, I'll stop. I know I'm already over time here, but I think we have time for maybe just a question, and then we can end the discussion here. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. This is Premananda.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah. It's so very nicely presented about need of discrimination in choice of what to say. So choice of enquiries or choice of materials that one inquires about, and also the source of hearing and the mode of approach. So very relevant and so very important. And I came across something. This is fundamental, fundamental to our spiritual practice. We have been hearing for many years, and yet the subject matter is really thought provoking for someone, anyone who is interested in carefully analyzing one's own approaches and activities in life. So I happened to I was hearing some class and happened to come across some interesting way of looking at this, that the mind, it is like the what we call it as the subtle body component, which is sometimes referred to as chitta. It seems to be able to, not it seems to be, it is able to flow in two different directions. One is towards its upliftment, going upwards, and the other direction is going downwards. So I heard this analogy of similar to that of a river. River usually flows downwards, and it's like, so the analogy given was like the senses and sense objects kind of attracts one's chitta towards this cycle of repeated birth and death. However, dispassion towards the sense objects, it takes one's mind away from the samsara. So that's where the discrimination aspect comes. So current of that river, because in the chitta there is a never-ending series of impressions that are getting deposited even in our simple day-to-day interactions, and there is no end to that. And so the flow of that is reversed if sense of discrimination is used in every interactions that we have while we live in this material world. So in other words, mind can lead to upliftment, or mind can pull us down depending upon how we discriminate things of this world. And so anyway, I just felt that there has to be like a constant effort put in from the perspective of gunas, like we are supposed to cultivate sattva and try to consciously address the issues relating to rajas and tamas. And sometimes even if we do that, still rajas and tamas comes in. So discrimination is so much necessary in day-to-day life to direct the flow of this mind in the right direction, as well as that main point you mentioned towards the end, who to approach and what mood to approach a spiritual guide while seeking guidance, that humility and pridelessness. um Thank you so much for that. And actually, it was when I heard you speak, it was like a reinforcement for what I was meditating upon, and so I just felt like sharing this with you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much for sharing that. Much appreciated. Any other comments,
I
discussion?
have a comment, Prabhu. I also appreciated that discussion on Prajalpa very much. Just this week, I was in a situation where potentially I could have spoken what was unnecessary. And, we hear of these three filters, right? Like what we speak. Is it pleasing? Is it true? And it is useful, like the utility is the principle. So, and later after the situation went by and I was thinking, how did that happen? And I was thinking it is because of, there is no shortcut. We have received training like from Jagdananda Prabhu and Vrindavan Mataji for years. And so that training and that consistent hearing is essential. There is no shortcut is what I was thinking. So that was one. Second thing I could really appreciate when you were talking about Ramananda Rai was, it took me back to Godavari, the banks of Godavari, and visiting those places and hearing these pastimes. So that was very special. And the third point was when you quoted this verse that the speaker has no voice. And it reminded me of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and the extraordinary circumstances in which he took sannyas, right? Like, he asked the assembled people, can anyone say that you haven't indulged in any improper activities in the last 6 months? And they were so-called sadhus and they hung their head. And so here was this Simha Guru who was exemplifying those qualities. So for me, those three thoughts came up. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so we are at 8:10, and again, this is a very beautiful verse and amazing subject that we can spend a lot more time. And I much appreciate everybody's participation and comments. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhupi evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Next class.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Next class.